Hi, podcast listeners. This is your host, Jenna Pecor, and I'm so excited to bring you our episode for today. If you are a first-time listener or a listener who has been with me since day one and you love what I'm doing, I want to encourage you to support the podcast by giving a small donation. I love bringing you new faces and interviews, but it does take time and resources to do it. And any support you'd be willing to give goes towards website upkeep, travel, time, and costs, and would help me greatly to keep doing what I'm doing. Give your support by going to paypal.me/Faces of Grand Prairie.
20 people in the cab on that side. 2 in each bathtub, one going one direction, one going the other. At least 3 on a good fold-out couch. 8 is a suggestion. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, hot tub, gas grill.
That was our upcoming guest, Mayor Pro Tem Jeff Copeland. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Faces of Grand Prairie podcast. This is your host, Jenna Pecor, and I'm coming to you with our 3rd episode, interviewing Mr. Jeff Copeland, who, as I mentioned, is Mayor Pro Tem. He's been a city councilman for the past 9 years. He is in the title industry. He is a dad. He is a grandfather. He's a husband. He is a man of God. And he is also a very, very sought after auctioneer, and kind of stumbled into that business and didn't see it really coming. What you just heard was him doing an auction at the Freedom Luncheon yesterday for Lifeline Shelter, where he was raising money for the cause, for the nonprofit. And as you can hear, he had everybody rolling, which he always does. But anyway, he is a wonderful man, and I always enjoy talking to him. And I'm so glad that you guys get to hear more about how he got into the auctioneering business, hear more about his faith, hear more about his family, and just why he decided to become an elected official in the hometown of his, Grand Prairian. So with that said, we have a lovely slate of interviewees coming up on the podcast over the next few weeks, and I would love to hear any of your suggestions. If there's someone out there that you just think would make a great subject of mine, where we could talk more about them living here, living here, loving here, working here, raising kids here, just whatever type of topic you think would be of interest. I would love to hear who those people are. Please send me over an email if you'd like at jenna@jennapecor.com. You can also comment on this podcast episode. Please leave us a review so that we know who's listening and what we can do to make the podcast more interesting for our listeners out there. And just really glad to bring this to you. It's my community service. I just think that there's so many wonderful and amazing, interesting people just located in our own backyard, and I just really want to introduce them to other people in this community. So without further ado, here is our interview with Mr. Jeff Copeland. Here we are today, and my guest is Mr. Jeff Copeland.
Hi, Jenna.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for letting me come out and do this with you.
I'm so excited, and we just got Jeff right after he just got done doing the auction for the Freedom Luncheon for the
Lifeline Shelter.
Lifeline Shelter
organization that helps homeless children in the Grand Prairian ISD.
Yes, it's a great organization. It really is. And we are actually at the Ruthe Jackson Center, sitting inside their brand new bridal suite.
Isn't this beautiful?
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that this was in here.
My daughter just graduated from college last year, and hopefully she's with the young man that'll be her husband. And this is where we're not going to have the wedding here. We're going to have the reception here.
Oh, man.
But this might be the father of the bride's private room during the reception.
I don't think that's what it's designed for, Jeff.
Turn it into a man cave. It's pretty girly looking, isn't it?
It's very girly, I will say that. But this used to be like a little, not a conference room, it was like one of the it's where Rotary would have lunch, and so there's tables in here, and they have redone this entire place, and there's like salon chairs, and it's really adorable.
This is one of the #1 wedding facilities in all the Metroplex.
No kidding.
And there's actually, it might be number one. There's a number for sure, but if it's not number one, it's way up there.
Wow.
They stay booked constantly. And so,
well, the outdoor area just in itself is gorgeous.
It's nice.
So if you haven't been to Ruthe Jackson in a while, it's definitely a place. You could just walk in and look around. You don't have to have anything to do. So
the young man that Haley, my daughter, is dating, I just love him to death. And he graduates from UTA with his mechanical engineering degree in December. And so she's saying, hey, listen, we need to go ahead and set a date because it takes like a year to book this place. And he's just adamant saying, I want to take care of I'm going to have a degree. I'm going to have a job. Mm-hmm. He's just old fashioned. I like him.
So were they officially engaged?
No, because he won't ask her. I mean, they're practically married, but he won't ask her because he's not going to. He in his mind, and I admire him, he had a way that he was going to do things. He was going to go to college, get a degree, get a job, and then get married.
You know what? Waiting is not a terrible idea.
It's not. And Haley, you know, her working for the Grand Prairian Chamber of Commerce says, I think she's a coordinator of special events or something. She's all about planning and getting this thing done.
Right. All she's seeing is all the time it's going to take to get the whole thing done. Yeah, like, that's so funny.
I can't wait till December. And it is what it is.
That's hilarious.
And she ain't used to being told no very much, so I like watching her getting told no. We like him so much that Melanie and I take his side more than our own daughter's side on stuff like that.
You know, you strike me as that kind of a dad.
You know, we think about that a lot, Melanie and I. We were blessed with great parents, both of us, but with our kids, I just rented a lake house at Lake Cisco last weekend. Mm-hmm. Just had our kids down there and just had a good time. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to be those type of parents that can stay active in our kids' lives as they're adults.
Right. And you know, now that she's back here, you've got her close by.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
And she lives with us, and we offered that to her to say, hey, listen, it looks like you've got your degree and now you've got a job, and if you want to stay here with us, you're more than welcome to save money. And so she's taking all of her rent money and putting it into a savings account, and so she ought to have a nice little nest egg when she gets ready. And I know I sure didn't have a nest egg. That's
phenomenal to be able to have parents that help. She could have benefited from the apartment that you auctioned off earlier.
I know. I thought about that, and I thought, I hope she doesn't get in there. I still got a better deal for her. I charge her $300 a month rent. And that's all inclusive. She's like, Daddy,
all inclusive.
I'm like, baby girl, that is your mama cooking for you. That's us buying the groceries. That's a swimming pool, electricity, a TV. You're trashing up my house. Because let me tell you, when we became empty nesters, I cried. I cried like a baby.
Now, how old's your son?
My son is 27 and my daughter is 22.
Okay.
And so I did not want to be an empty nester. We lived our life around our kids, and I cried. And after about a month, I got used to it. And empty nesting is great. I know it's harder for folks like you that have young babies. Can't imagine them going off. But
right.
And I'll tell you this too. I tell, out of all of my group of friends, Melanie and I, my wife, we started dating in high school. And so we dated through high school and college, and so I think we dated for like 7 years, and we just had our 29th wedding anniversary. So we've been together for 36 years, and so we were because we had dated for 7 years, as soon as we got married, we wanted to start having babies.
Right.
And so out of my group of friends, our kids are the oldest. And so we've kind of been able to advise, you know, as our friends come into the teen years, and we've kind of had that advisory role. But for all the young parents out there, I'm going to tell you that I don't know why, but I thought that we parent our children until they're 18 and then you get them off to college. It's so much harder after 18 than before 18. No matter what you're going through with your little ones at home, it's when they go off to school and it's no longer scraped knees. It's real things. It's real things like college doesn't want you to hang around here no more, and you know, it's real life, and that's when it's so difficult that as a parent, when you can't fix it anymore. So as if your kids at home are stressing you out, enjoy being able to fix their problems right now, because when they get older, you just have to
You just have to watch them go through and trust the raising. And for us, we raised our children in a Christian home, and I was blessed to watch both my children be baptized. And I watched my children go through the trials and tribulations of life in college, but yet they had Christ with them.
Yep.
And I didn't have that in my life. And so it's been such a blessing to be able to know the power of Christ in those relationships that I didn't have that, and be able to watch my children have it and the confidence that they have.
And and God wants us to raise kids to become adults that go and do for Him. And so I taught a Bible study class one time about parenting, and it was talking about how to look at raising kids from a different perspective, one of raising them to be missionaries for Him. The whole point is to teach them how to climb the mountain so that they can do it on their own, not to keep them at the bottom, holding them down. So I try to keep that perspective, even though my daughter's only 8.
Right.
Like, eventually you're going to be a young lady that's going to be in high school, that's going to be away from me, making your own decisions. But it doesn't mean it's easy.
Well, and that's such a great point, because when my kids were in high school and I would try to have some of those moral conversations with them, I didn't have to, because they already had that set of morals from the relationship with God, and God commands us to bring our children to Him, and specifically God commands the fathers to bring their families to Christ, and I know that you're a recent single mom, and I'm a product of a single mom, and I just have such an amazing respect for single moms, because I'm a product of one, of these very strong women who have to be the mom and be the dad and take on those roles, because now with your daughter, even though she still has a dad, you're taking that role of God is commanding you to bring her to Him.
Right.
And those aren't always the easiest things to do.
I try to talk to her about what is your feeling about this? Not me telling you what to do, but how do you feel about it? Like, when she comes to me and she says, so-and-so said a bad word at school. And I'm like, how did that make you feel? Not that's wrong, not don't talk to him anymore. But how did that make you feel? I didn't like it. Like, what do you mean you didn't like it? Like, because I want her to feel her instincts and feel that conscience that she has, and not have me be the hoverer that's telling her what to do. But it's I'm glad that you're bringing God up and your faith in the Lord, because I distinctly remember when I met you, I'd seen you do some auction. I think I'd seen you one time at an auction, and I'd kind of gotten to know you. I knew your mom before that, but when you came to our Rotary and you shared kind of how you became an auctioneer, which, so for those of you that have never met Jeff, he is What's your day job?
I'm in the title insurance industry, so I work for First American Title, and I'm what we call an agency rep. So all of these title companies that buyers, sellers, realtors interact with, whether it's XYZ title or not, they're actually not the insurance company, they're the agent, and they have to write that title insurance on an underwriter. I'm actually the underwriter. So my job is I have title insurance companies all over the state of Texas, and I deal with the owners, and I've got the best job in the world, because in Texas the rates are promulgated, which means title insurance costs what it costs.
Right.
Nobody can mess around with that. Well, also in Texas, what's promulgated is the split between the agent and the underwriter. So when you go and close a deal and you write a check to XYZ Title for the title premium, well, the underwriter gets 15% of that, and it's not negotiable. It just is what it is. And that 15% comes to me at First American, and we actually insure the products. Like,
I see.
If you had an insurance agent with Farmers Insurance, Greg Gessner is my insurance agent. When we wreck a car, Greg doesn't write a check, Farmers Insurance does.
Right.
So in title insurance, First American steps up and we underwrite it. So my job, I'm a necessary evil in the transaction, and my rate is promulgated. So every title insurance company has to have an underwriter or multiple underwriters, and they all have multiple. So they're going to do business with the people that they have the best relationship with. So, it can get a little more technical, but basically it's relationship business. So my job is to travel around Texas shaking hands and kissing babies and building relationships, which is what I love doing and which is what I try to do here in town too.
So do you work from home? Do you have an office?
I have the job. You can work from home, and I had been on the other side of the business. I had been running title companies for so long, and I had been the president of companies and had hundreds of employees, and this was appealing to me to not have any employees. But I'd been driving to North Dallas my whole career to go to an office, and then when I got a chance to work from home, I thought, that is wonderful.
Yeah.
I failed miserably working from home. After like 2 weeks, I said, I've got to find an office to go to.
Yeah, yeah.
Because about 10 o'clock, I knew The Price is Right was on, and I'd still be working, but I'd be down there watching some Drew Carey. So very quickly, I said, I now know I'm the type of guy that's got to get up, get dressed, go to an office. And it's great. First American has a little builder office over in Arlington, so it's just a 5-minute drive.
Oh, that's nice.
I was used to commuting an hour and a half each way.
But you don't have to be there at any time?
No.
See,
because I normally wake up and I'll do most of my work from home, talking on the telephone, and then I travel a lot. So with City Council, and I know we'll get to that a little bit, but City Council, we meet on the first and third Tuesdays of the month, and so
first and third. Okay.
After City Council meeting, I'll go out and travel, but I drive everywhere I go. Driving is just easier for me because I'm a big dude. I'd rather be in my truck than squashed up on a little airplane. But quite honestly, if you're listening, pretty much anywhere in Texas, it's faster to drive. If you're going to go to Austin, then you got to get to Love Field 2 hours beforehand, and then get a rent car and then drive. I can drive to Austin in quicker time than you can fly to Austin.
The only thing that bothers me about driving, because as a real estate agent, I'm the same exact way, is I feel like when I'm driving, it's just time that I'm wasting. And I'm like, okay, what could I be doing as I'm driving? Yeah. So now that I have these little mics, I'm like, could I do a little something like dictate to somebody? Like, because I feel like if I'm in my car for too long, by the time I get out, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like 15 emails that I have to respond to and all these text messages.
Yeah, that'd be tough as a realtor. I'll tell you, for anybody listening that travels, Vaughn Lane, this is all of a sudden a commercial. It's a new bus company. And they're big, giant, fancy buses, and you sit down in like a big, giant recliner, and you take your laptop, and they have full computer. And so they go to Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and you sit there and work the entire time.
Oh, my
that you're
goodness.
Driving. And then when you get there, you just Uber somewhere.
That is
and so
amazing.
You're not rent car or nothing like that. Yeah, Vaughn Lane. That's most of the people in the industry now are using that instead of airplanes.
Wow. Well, it makes perfect sense because by the time you get up in the airplane and you're doing all that stuff, it's just.
Right.
But you are also an auctioneer, which you did not see coming in your life.
Can I tell you that story?
I would love for you to.
So right now, I probably do about 60 auctions a year, and I only work with charitable groups. I don't do cows or cars or anything like that. And but years ago, I was at the Grand Prairian Women's Club.
How long ago was that, do you think?
And I'm thinking it might have been 10 to 15 years ago. Melanie and I have tried to put a date on it, but because we didn't even see it happen when it happened.
Which, by the way, you mentioned your wife a couple times, and I just want to say your wife is like the most lovely woman of all time.
I guarantee you, she is the wind beneath my wings.
Oh my gosh.
And guys, if you're out there and you got a woman that's trying to change you and you're fighting it, just change. She knows what's best for you.
Did everyone hear that? Coming from an expert.
And I'm guarantee you, I'm as rough around the edges. I'm a good old boy. I was a beer drinking, hell-raising, steroid-eating college football player, and I knew that my wife was the right person for me. But the timing was bad because I wanted to keep raising hell. And I thought, I got to make a decision. I gotta look forward and settle down right now. And I hate to admit it, but I guess she's got me so tamed that I can tell everybody else, just accept it, and they know what's best. But I drive, and I told my kids, if I ever pull up to your house, one of these days coming to visit you 20 years from now, if I pull up and your mama is driving and I've got a little lap dog in my lap, just take me out back and shoot me right then because all of my man is gone at that point. There's two things I'm holding on to. No lap dog and I'm driving, by golly.
But I'll tell you though, you're what, man, you are one blessed man. I love her so much. But anyway, I digress. So we'll talk about that, kind of life and all that other good stuff. But anyway, so back to the auctioneering.
So I was at just the Grand Prairie Women's Club because my mom, and my mom, and she raised me to be service oriented my whole life and to be involved in different deals. So why I was even there, I don't know. But I love the Grand Prairie Women's Club because I believe it takes a village to raise our children, and that's kind of the village that raised me, because those are my teachers and principals and people that know you. And I think it's wonderful that they knew Jeff at 17 or 18, and I probably wasn't the most shiniest example of students, but they let me be me, and they let me grow up. And today, after this auction, there's 5 or 6 of my former teachers here. And for them to come up and say they're proud of me, it's really good. So we're at the deal. Their auctioneer didn't show up. And Barbara Kerr comes up to me and says, "Hey, Jeff, our auctioneer's not here. We need you to be the auctioneer." And I said, "Well, I'm not an auctioneer." And Barbara Kerr says, "You're the biggest loudmouth I know. How hard can it be?" That's Barbara, right? And I said, "Okay, I'll give it a whirl." And I got up and I did it, and I just did whatever and made people laugh and had a good time. And that was it. And about 2 weeks later, somebody called and said, "Hey, we'd love for you to be our auctioneer." And I'm like, "Hey, I'm not an auctioneer."
Whoa.
Yeah. And so they said, "Come do it." And I said, "All right." And so I started doing like maybe 4 auctions a year. And literally, I remember people calling me on a Tuesday night and saying, "Hey, can you come do our auction Saturday?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that's fine. If it'll help," because it was always charity events, packed deals.
Because at the time, weren't you about to have a kid in college?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, and it was just, so I just did it, and then it kind of got to where I was doing like 1 a month, and it was getting a little overwhelming. And Melanie and I, we do a lot of praying on our patio, and we're sitting out on our patio, and said, this is now starting to take time and to do some things. And we said, yeah, but we're working with charity. So we just started using it as our date night, because it's always a gala and you dress up and you meet local celebrities or whatnot. And we just said it'll be our date night. So we did it as date night for a long time.
And were you only doing Grand Prairie, or were you doing around?
I was just, because when you do one auction, it leads to 2 or 3 more,
right,
because there's always somebody there. If you do a good job, there's always somebody saying, "Hey, we
there's
want
at
you
least
to
5 other directors of some nonprofit
exactly.
that's like, wait a second.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And so then we started, then it starts getting more and more. Now I'm maybe doing 20 or something, and we get back on the patio and we say, "Hey, this is getting to be too much now." And we tried to date night it, and now it's interfering with the family. And we just said, okay, well, we're going to have to start charging. And the only reason we wanted to charge was so that people wouldn't use me.
To filter.
We didn't want the money. We just wanted people to say, "Oh, well, never mind." And
so you didn't have to be the bad guy.
Right, exactly. Oh, so we decided that I would continue to do auctions for whoever I've done them for. But when new groups called, I was just going to say I'm full. The very next day, a big church out in Cedar Hill that has a K through 12 school that I've never met in my life, they just called and said, "Hey, we've heard about you, and would you please come do our auction?" I said, "All right, God, we just had a conversation last night that we're not going to do this anymore. Now you got a church." So I told them I'd do it. And they had hired a consultant who does this on a national basis, and the guy does like 250 auctions a year. And he was just a godly man, and he was there, and we were visiting, and I told him, I said, "I would love your critique on all of this." And he said, "Yeah, sure." And I'm sure he expected me to get up and kind of fail. And I got up and I did it. And it was one of those auctions where the energy was right, and the people gave me a standing ovation. And when I got back to the table to the guy that does it professionally, he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're the best I've ever heard. You got to start doing this professionally." And I said, "Hey, listen, man, I'm not criticizing how you make your living, but I just don't know how you charge churches and charities." And he said something that set me free. He said, "Jeff," he said, "I'm using my kingdom gifts to get money out of the secular world into the kingdom world." And I said, "Amen, brother, because I'm going to start charging now."
Perspective.
So now I'm going to charge, but I'm really only charging so that they'll say, "Never mind." in this hospital, this big hospital out in East Texas that I'd done their auctions for years, for like 3 years. I would drive 3 hours out to their event, do their event, not charge a dime. They called and said, "Hey, we're ready to book you." And I hauled around, and I said, "Oh, man, and they go, "Well, what?" And I said, "Well, I'm charging now." And they said, "How much?" And I think back then it was like $1,000. And I said, $1,000? And God just shined through, because they said the greatest thing literally they could have said. They said, "That is fine with us, Jeff. We've been taking advantage of you for years."
I was going to say, I bet they felt like they'd gotten a really good gift for a while.
Amen. And so that just set me free. And so we talked to the kids, and we said, "Hey, Daddy's going to start charging now. So if somebody needs me, I have to go. Maybe I have to miss a dance recital." And the kids were like, and we made a deal. It's always going to be family fun money, whether it's buying four-wheelers or going on vacations. And so we kept it family oriented, and it just started growing and growing and growing, and more from there. So I kept going up and up and up and on the price, trying to keep people, to say no, and people just kept paying the price.
Because at this time you were charging, but you were still keeping Grand Prairie.
Grand Prairie
stuff
is all
right.
free. Thank
right.
you for saying
yeah.
that. I don't. I'd always done Grand Prairie. When I started charging, I originally said I'll do Grand Prairie for half price, and that's Children First and Lifeline and pretty much anybody in Grand Prairie. There's 3 or 4 Grand Prairie United charities. And they gladly wrote me a check, and I won't tell you I cashed the check and I spent the money, but it just didn't set well with me. I just said, "Man, I'm a son of Grand Prairie," and so I just decided I'm just going to do the Grand Prairie charities for free. And then especially
that's kind of your service in a different way.
That's my service. That's me giving back to my community, which is really how all this got started.
Right.
And the cool thing about the auctions is it blew up, and now I'm doing 60 or so a year, and I'm charging a lot more than $1,000, and it's been a real financial blessing to our family. And I've along the way went and became a licensed auctioneer, because when you start charging, you got to get licensed and do a lot of different things and continuing education. But I was sitting on my patio one day, and this is the greatest part of the story. And I was out there by myself, and Jenna, just as plain as you and I are sitting here right now, Jesus sat down beside me. I've told this story 20 times, but I get emotional every time. But he sat down right beside me, and he said, "Hey, man," because Jesus and I have a casual conversation. If you need to put a 3-piece suit on to go to your father's house, I appreciate that. But I can go to my father's house in shorts and flip-flops. And Jesus said, "Hey, man, did you see what I did?" And I said, "No, I don't know." And Jesus said, "I took the worst thing about you, which was my tongue, and made it the greatest thing about you. And along the way, we've raised millions of dollars for people that need it." And when I say my tongue was the worst thing about me, when I was growing up, and people that know me from when I was growing up and at South Grand Prairie, I was the student body president. I was still already in leadership roles, but I can look back now and see how much I led people in the wrong direction. And my tongue was very, very, very sharp. The Bible says the tongue's the biggest muscle in your body, and it could do more damage than anything.
That's right.
And I had a sharp tongue, and I would make people laugh at you so that you wouldn't be laughing at me. And I just did tremendous damage with my tongue through humor, not knowing. And now, through these auctions, I use the same humor, that God gave me. And now Jesus has refined to where I have some clients, and I try to put it on a business card, but some of my clients call me an auction-tainer, because you see me do it. It's as much as a stand-up comedy routine as it is an auction. So I'm making people laugh, but he took my tongue and took my personality that he gave me that I had misused on my own. I came, right here at South Park Baptist Church, just right next door to what was Jackson at the time, but now it's the South 9th Grade Center. That's where I was baptized in the 7th grade, and I know I had a relationship with Christ, but I wasn't on a walk. Through. Once I got to high school, the devil said, "Let me show you some of these fun things over here." And then when I got to college, the devil said, "Boy, I really got some things I want to show you." And luckily for me, I still had Melanie in my life, and that kept me grounded. But my tongue did a lot of damage. And so now when Jesus said, you see what I did? And even then I said, no, Lord, I don't. And then when he told me, I went, oh, wow, because literally every time right before I walk on stage and I go back somewhere and I do it privately, I always pray, Lord, can I have the gift one more time? Because I have no idea how spiritual gifts work, but I know for certain that me being able to do these auctions is a spiritual gift. I don't know how they work, but if they work, that would one of these days, if I walk up on stage and I can't say a word, if I freeze up and I can't auction anymore, I'm just going to say thank you, Lord, for the times that you gave me, and I'm not going to regret. I'm just going to be thankful for what he had. And as soon as I get off the stage, I say a prayer of thanks. And, to this day, there's so much turmoil in our world, and whether you watch CNN or whether you watch Fox, if you're brave enough to ask people, we're all the same. And, and for me, I get to work with so many charities and whether it's Ronald McDonald House or Make-A-Wish, because now God continues to bless my auctioneering business to where I'm doing big, giant national groups. And I remember... You
just did the Cattle Barons auction.
Yeah, I did the Cattle Barons Ball for the American Cancer Society. And doing auctions that were going over $1 million for. And I'll tell you, boy, if you want to see a 6'4", 300-pound guy cry, come out to the Ronald McDonald House and the Make-A-Wish auctions, because I can't get through them. And I remember as a young kid being cognizant of Make-A-Wish and Ronald McDonald House, and I remember vaguely as just an idiot 15-year-old, I would like to be involved in that somehow, not having any idea what God's plans for me, that now I'm the front guy for their organizations when they're raising money. And when you raise money for a beautiful little boy to go to Disneyland this year, and when you go do the auction next year and he's passed away, it's a gift. It's a gift, and I'm thankful for it.
Right.
And so auctions are just a huge part of our lives, and now God is blessing me with some extra finances along the way as well, and so as long as I can do it, I hope to be able to keep doing it.
I'm so glad that you shared that, because this is when like I said, I'd seen you do auctions. That's how I knew you.
Right.
Besides being Sandy's son, that I did business with Sandy, and that's your mom. When you shared that story, I saw a side of you that I know a lot of people don't get to see, because if there's a lot of you out there that have probably never seen Jeff do an auction. There's a lot of the, during the day, there's a lot of these same people that come to these events. And if you've seen you know that you are a huge personality. You're very, very funny. You're very outgoing. You're loud. But then you share stories like that. And I just remember thinking to myself, there's something just beneath all that. And so when I came to you, like you and I got to know each other a little bit more, because I said, listen, there's something cool that I think we could do. And you said, okay, well, let's meet. And we had to talk. And I feel like I'm kind of lucky because I get to know a side of you that I know a lot of other people don't get to see. So as an elected official of my community, when anybody comes to me and I get to talk about, someone like you that I love so much, I'm like, no, you don't know. He's genuine. This person is a genuine, true believer in the Lord. He uses his life for service. Like, he's just as cool as the person you see. He's just like that. And so I loved that. Matter of fact, whenever I called you to do this podcast, you and your wife were on your way to New Orleans.
Yep, for our anniversary.
Which anniversary is it?
29.
29. And I said, hey, will you do this podcast? And you said, Jenna, if you're asking me to do it, I'll do whatever. And then she gets on the phone and y'all are talking to me, and then the next thing I know, y'all are sending me pictures from like y'all's trip, and y'all turned your auction that you were doing into a little vacation. Yeah. So it was really cool.
And what a blessing, because it was our 29th anniversary, but it was an auction in New Orleans, and they put us up at the Roosevelt, which is the fanciest hotel there. And so God just blesses us in so many ways, and I think that I know what I struggled with on my walk with Christ as a young man. And I'm a big dude, and I was playing football, and I was real wanting to be tough, and I had a horrible image of Christians as a young kid, they weren't the cool kids, they weren't the funny kids, they weren't the tough kids. And then when Jesus would talk about if somebody slaps you in the face, then give them the other cheek. Well, I can tell you, as a big old football player, man, that did not sit well with me. That if somebody's going to slap me in my face, then if we're getting it on. And that kept me from getting a deeper relationship with Christ. And so now, when I have the opportunity to have a stage, I want people to be able to see a big old, just good old boy that's up there cutting up and laughing and telling jokes. And then all of a sudden I can turn around and try to minister to them. And maybe somebody says, oh, well, Christians aren't a bunch of fuddy-duddies. They're not. They have a personality. They have funny stories. And it's all a part of just trying to live my life. And for anybody that's listening out there that's struggling with the whole humility side of being a Christian, because I'm going to tell you, that was my biggest boundary of really committing my life to Christ, was that I couldn't overcome the humbleness of it. I couldn't, and so one Sunday, I think
you're in good company with a lot of other people.
Well, then let me tell you this, because I was at church one Sunday, and my preacher said, humility is nothing but true strength under control.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
That set me free. And I thought about Jesus being on the cross, and the Pharisees were down there on the ground going, well, hey, punk, if you're the Son of God, why don't you hop on down off of that cross? And boy, I tell you, young Jeff would have ripped them nails out and jumped down off that cross and said, let me show you something, punk. But he didn't. Christ had the power to do it. He had the strength to do it. Yet he remained humble.
And he didn't even remain only humble. What did he do? He asked God to forgive him.
Yeah, amen.
They know not what they do.
They don't even know what they're saying, Lord.
I wish there was examples in the Bible that Jesus had used of people with bad pasts that could make a difference for the Christians. I don't know. I'm thinking of Paul, maybe. That was a prosecutor of Christians. And you using that testimony, what that says is, regardless of what you've done, it doesn't mean you can't be something different. And God has used so many people from that. I mean, we're all sinners to further His kingdom in bunches of different ways. And so it kind of brings up a good point, because you're from this town, you've grown up in this town. So, and you made it, I mean, my parents were teachers. I grew up in Grand Prairie. Those women club teachers were my teachers too. I mean, I know you and I don't know how much of a difference in age.
I graduated in 84.
So I graduated in 98. So there's 14 difference, and guaranteed we probably shared many of the same teachers. So becoming an adult, now you're a city councilman. Which district are you in?
I'm at large.
Which means?
So we have 6 individual districts in the city. And so those council people will run, and they represent that district, and it's the district that they live in, and only the people in that district can vote for them, and they represent that district. And then we have 3 at-large positions. The mayor naturally is at-large.
Gotcha.
And then we have 2 other at-large positions, which is Greg Gessner, he's one of our at-large, and I'm at-large, which means when we run citywide, and we represent the entire city. And so what that means is our campaigns are a lot more expensive to run, because instead of just putting them out in the neighborhood, we're going city to city. But while Greg and I and the mayor, anybody can call us for anything, they also have, the citizens have their own district council people that live right there in their district. So I love being at large, because, I mean, if I was a district, it would be great and wonderful, but I love being able to And really, if you were on the north side of town and you called a south side city council person, they're going to jump up and help you and do whatever. It's really kind of
I can
titles.
attest to that.
But I love being able to represent my town, because I just love. I tell you, I love that South Grand Prairie High School and Grand Prairie High School don't get along, and to this day. And I'm gonna tell you, Gophers, I represent you, and I'm very conscious of not having that it's a fun rivalry. And I think it's fun that I run across Gophers that I played football against, and we shake hands and we hug each other, but we still act like we don't get along.
Yeah,
and it's fun to have that rivalry. You know what I mean?
You know what's funny is I think that in Grand Prairie we take for granted that we have that, first of all, because a lot of other cities don't.
You're right.
That we have the amazing football stadium that we do, because that thing, it was an amazing thing when they built it, and it's still amazing.
And let me say this, let me interrupt. That is the Gopher Bow, so that I can make sure all the North Side people
right.
That ain't never going to be the Warrior Gopher Bow. I'm tried and true South Grand Prairie Warrior.
Me too.
But that's the Gopher Bow.
No, I've never once called it anything besides the Gopher Bowl. That's what it is.
Right.
I lived right by it. And I'm like, that's what it is. It's the Gopher Bowl.
The two greatest signs I ever saw, I think it was my senior year when we were playing North Grand Prairie. And I know they don't like that name.
You had to get a dig in there somewhere.
They had a sign up on the Gopher side. They had the sign up that said, "Beat North Cedar Hill." So they weren't even recognizing us as Grand Prairie, which I remember it 35 years later.
Oh,
and
my.
Then they had another sign that said, "The home team never rides a bus to the stadium." I'm like, okay, both of those are true. So that's just a fun.
Hey, but now that it's open district, you could really live
anywhere you want.
But the other thing too that I find when I talk to people is like, okay, when did you graduate? And what school did you graduate from? Because that's how I know what generation you're at. So it's like, my dad graduated from Grand Prairie. His sister graduated from South, but she was one of the first graduating classes once they built the school. So we have so much history in this, you know. So one of the things I asked the mayor was, you know, having grown up in this town, which I think he came here when he was a teenager, but he still spent a lot of his time before he became mayor. So being a city council person and you know, being kind of in a place of authority within the city, and knowing all these people that have known you as a kid, did you find that challenging or intimidating? Or,
you know what, I think I probably was a little bit intimidated, but I was blessed by all of those people wrapping their arms around me and saying, I didn't know it, but they were saying, yeah, Jeff, we've been grooming you for this for a long time. And whether it was my mom showing me through community service and taking me to every event. I mean, when I was 12 years old, my mom had beaten into me which fork to use at a fancy dinner. And so now I'm not intimidated. And I remember going and she's saying, that's so-and-so and that's so-and-so. And then when I got the opportunity to run, they said, we've been waiting on the next generation to step up, and we've been grooming you, and we're glad that you're stepping up. And Greg and I both feel that same way.
How long have you been doing this now?
9 years. I
9
think
years.
I've been on the council.
When is your next?
I'm up for re-election this coming May.
3 years.
Right.
3-year terms.
Right.
Okay. So 22-year-old Jeff, maybe not so much. But now that you got a little older, they were like, yeah, no, we totally are embracing
and that's why
it.
I say they let me grow up, and they let you kind of, and it takes a community, and I just recently spoke at the women's club. I just called and said, next time y'all are having a speaker, please let me come speak. And they're like, well, about what? And I said, I just got to tell y'all something. And I just had to go tell them that they helped raise me, and and it's nothing against my mom, because my mom was right there, but I do believe it takes a village. And there were people in this town that poured into me that didn't have to, and that watched me do stupid things and then welcomed me back in. And I tell you, the absolute worst thing about being on the city council is having to raise money for a campaign. And because it's so hard, because I just want to serve, but I want to have a relationship with you, but I don't want to ask you for $50. And I never knew what the money was for.
Yeah.
And the money is for, it's expensive. I mean, that first campaign cost $35,000, and that's buying every one of these big 4x4 signs, buying hundreds.
Have you always done at large?
Yes.
You've always been at large. So
and the way I got in was I took Miss Ruthe's place. Miss Ruthe passed away, and the way our city charter was set up, that if we lost a council person, we had to have a special election. So it was like October-ish. I remember it being cold, and the election was coming up in May, and Miss Ruthe, after like 30 years of service, had decided that she wasn't going to run again. And so there were several of us preparing to run for her spot, and then she passed away about 7 months before. So all of a
didn't realize
sudden,
she was at large. I guess everybody was at large back then.
No, I don't think so. I think they've always had districts.
Okay, so school board is maybe the new.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Going back and forth with
it.
So Miss Ruthe passed away, so we had to call a special election. So all of a sudden, you're getting ready to campaign in 7 months, and now you're having to campaign, and you don't know. Come here from sick about campaigning. And it costs money, and you gotta send mailers out, and you gotta let people know who you are, and to do that, you gotta have campaigns, because the city council pays like $50 a month to be on.
I was going to ask you. I've never even asked anybody how much do you get paid to be on city council.
It's like $50 a month. If it's 65 now, it hasn't been enough of a raise to affect my lifestyle. But I figure, spending $35,000 on the first campaign at $50 a month, in the next couple hundred years, I'll have it paid for. But I'll tell you, it was the absolute most humbling thing in the world to these teachers, these community leaders, these people that that are coming to you saying, here's $100, here's $200, here's $2,500. That's saying, we believe in you. Now you get out there and you fight for it, and you go knock on some doors, and you get the signs up. And because campaigning is so tough, because on the national level, you have polls. So the politicians, they can just wave in the wind with the polls. But in a city race, you have no idea. You're out there just grinding every day, and you have no idea until election day. And I'm going to tell you, without Melanie, once again, she jumped in. We had a long talk beforehand, and she was supportive of it. And literally, Melanie, my mom was my treasurer of my campaign, and if y'all know me, you know her, and she's the greatest networker in the world. She was the treasurer. And
you had a pretty good campaign manager.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm sure she did a lot of that too.
She was involved. There was one time that I said, I called my mom Sassy. So y'all know her as Sandy, but her family name is Sassy because when she was 2 years old, she was over at her favorite aunt's house, and she wouldn't eat her oatmeal, and her aunt was on her to eat her oatmeal and turned away, and when she turned back, my mom had dumped the entire bowl of oatmeal on her head. And her aunt said, "You sassy little devil." And so from that point forward, in our family, she's just known as Sassy. And so as a term of endearment, I call my mom Sassy. But I finally said, "Sassy, do you want me to withdraw from the campaign?" And because she edited your book, right?
Yes,
so
she did.
So you ask her to edit your book, but if you're not careful, she'll turn around and rewrite your book for you. So I finally had to say, "Hey, do you just want to run?"
Matter of fact, she goes, "Okay, so how many, are you going to get back, if you get back a bunch of highlighted stuff, is it going to hurt your feelings?" And I said, "No, that is what you're doing." But she was very concerned. She was going to take over.
Well, yeah, she's a special lady. She probably missed her calling as a book editor. But so Melanie was right there, and so every night you're getting blessed by 20 or 30 more people have called and said, "Hey, we want a yard sign," and so you're out putting out yard signs, and then my kids, we're loading up the trailer every weekend, and we're putting up the big yard signs. It's a full-blown family effort, and it has to be if you're going to do it. But it's just horrible asking for money. If anybody that's looking, that's listening right now, I'm going to be campaigning in May, and I'm still going to be asking you for money, but just know it never ever gets any easier. But it's so incredibly humbling when somebody says, "We want you representing us at City Hall.
Right.
We need your voice in that room." And that's all we are. We're voices, because there's not any one city council person that's going to come in and make incredible changes.
Right.
There's 9 of us, so you got to have at least 5 votes to do something. But it's to be a voice in that room, and right now we're blessed to have some really collectively some good voices in the room.
I would agree with that very much.
And we don't always agree, and I want to say that if anybody watches the city council on TV or if you read about it, you're going to see that most of our votes are 9-0 one way or the other. But by the time we get into the council chambers, we have briefing before council, so we go into the council chambers at 6:30, but we actually start the meeting at 4:30, and we're having briefings in there. And while we're still following Robert's Rules of Order, it's a little less formal environment, so we can really ask a whole bunch of questions. There are really strict rules. 3 or 4 of us can't go off and talk.
Right.
I mean, so
what is that called?
A quorum.
A quorum.
All of a sudden, and all of a sudden you have a walking quorum. If I were to call Greg and ask his opinion, and he were to call Jeff and ask his opinion, and that's a walking quorum.
That's something a lot of people don't know. And if you're never around either school board members or city council members, if you will hear them talk about that a lot. It's like we just have to be very careful not to become.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Greg Gessner is our other at-large, and Greg and I were roommates in college, and so we've been.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we've been best friends since high school, and we were roommates in college. And here's a cool thing.
Oh my goodness.
We were sitting up there in Denton, Texas. We were attending University of North Texas, and there was 4 of us, and I'll tell you the rest of them. And we're sitting around, and we're young kids, and we're college kids. We're dumb. All right, if you're in college and I just called you dumb, I understand why you took offense, but still, there's some growing to do.
Yeah.
So we're just young and dumb, and we're going. And this was in the late 80s. We're going, Grand Prairie's such a neat city. It's right in the middle of Dallas and Fort Worth. But we had this reputation of kind of being the armpit of the Metroplex for whatever reason back in the day. And we're going, Grand Prairie, it's located so well, and if we could do some things, and
when I was 9 and you're talking about that, we thought we were cool when we got the Cinemark.
Yeah.
Remember, that was the biggest thing that we had gotten then.
The Chili's.
The Chili's was a big deal.
The Chili's was
I was like, Grand Prairie's moving up in the world. We got a Chili's.
And so these 4 young, dumb college kids said, well, when we get older, we want to move back home after college, and we want to get involved in our community.
Wow. And
we did, and we got involved, and we spent a couple of decades getting involved. And so one of my roommates was Greg, who serves on the city council. Another one of my roommates who said that at the time was Tim Johnson, who spent like 3 or 4 terms on the Grand Prairie School Board, served as a president a couple of times. And the other was Carrie Dover, and Carrie Dover came home and was running the youth group out at the Methodist Church. I can't remember. Sorry, Carrie, I can't remember. But Carrie got home and committed his life to Christ and to pouring into young people. So we did it. We said we wanted to go home. This is our home. We wanted to go home. We wanted to get involved. And we did. And so Greg and I are pretty passionate about that. And today in the auction, do you remember the K104 curve?
Oh my gosh, when you were talking about that, there are still songs that come on that I remember have the little, the 106.1 Kiss FM or whatever it was, and you were talking about that, and it just reminded me of so many of those.
Greg and I were talking about a brand new development deal out on Mayfield Road, and I'm like, well, where's this out? And he said, where the old K104. And that curve hasn't been there in 20 years, maybe. I don't know. I said, my gosh, we've been around. But I knew exactly where it was.
Right.
It was just a big S curve. And, if you grew up in Grand Prairie, you would try to drive through that as fast as you could.
Was that over by?
It was on Mayfield. Just west of what's now 161. But 161 wasn't there. And it was just a big hard S curve, and there was a little bitty wooden shack right there about that was K104.
I didn't know that. Oh my gosh. There's so many of that. Like you can always tell when people moved here because it's like, what do you call certain buildings?
Yes.
We still call Ruthe Jackson sometimes the old Food Lion.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's how far back I remember.
Got a little Grand Prairie on it, right? That our community center used to be a Food Lion.
Right.
I love Grand Prairie. I love it.
Or the admin building. Wasn't it a Kmart at one point?
And during my generation in the 70s and 80s, that was our high school hangout because we all hung out at Jack in the Box. Did y'all still hang out at Jack when you were there? So Jack.
No, we hang out at the Brass Bean.
Oh.
Because the 90s are when Friends came along, and we all thought it was really cool to go to a coffee shop. So we would go to the Brass Bean.
We were just at the local burger joint, which was in the parking lot of Kmart, which is now the school admin building.
Or when you go real back far, and you're like, people that graduated in the 60s, when they grew up, the furthest it went down south was like, they could tell how, when they were a kid, this is how far south the development of Grand Prairie actually went. And now, when you think about how big this, it is the longest city ever.
Absolutely.
And when people talk about, you kind of hit on like, it used to be people used to think of it as the armpit, and people talk about how we're losing our small town feel. it's hard for me to even think, guys, do y'all even know where we are located?
Right.
The fact that we have just now gotten to that point is pretty phenomenal because the location that we're in is astonishingly amazing. We stretch for so far north and south, and the things that we're doing, one of the reasons I did this podcast was because it's such a long territory, like as far as north and south. There's so many things on both sides of the city that if you're never driving anywhere close, you might not even realize all the stuff going on Main Street. You might not realize all the stuff going on the south side. But the development in the city is just out of this world.
And I have sworn, and I will never, ever, ever get a speeding ticket on 161. Because literally, I drive 161 every day, and literally every time I'm on it, I am so thankful that I am cruising right through the middle of Grand Prairie at 70 miles an hour. I say, boy, if I ever get a ticket, it's on me because it used to be 100 lights to go from north to south.
How fast do you need to go?
Yeah, exactly. So now I see people pass me on 161 going 100 mile an hour, and I'm going 70. I'm just appreciative of that.
And people always forget that 360 and 30, that's still in Grand Prairie, isn't it?
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Interchange, and that's all getting developed.
So, kind of pretty much. It winds around from north to south a little bit, but in general, the curb of the southbound service road.
Okay.
So if you're southbound on 360 and you're on the service road, that curb is the border
of the city.
But
the counties are like what, a couple
counties,
hundred yards?
Just
a little, which is always interesting. Because I remember when we built Texas Roadhouse was brand new when I turned 18, and so I got to be a server there, and we were right on the county line. So we still had to take membership cards for people to be able to drink there, and but it was still in Grand Prairie. And then it's like, well, certain places can sell beer, certain places can't sell beer. So Grand Prairie is just one of those unique areas.
Well, and that's what we just changed in this last election.
Really?
Believe it or not, that when all of that was drawn up. So we've talked about my Christianity, and so I can say that Mayor England is the one who started taking Grand Prairie in the direction that we are now. And probably the most contributing factor to that was liquor by the drink. Because restaurants, no matter what your favorite restaurant is, and no matter how much food you eat there, about 85 to 90% of all revenues at a restaurant come from liquor sales. Okay? So I am, for the most part, I'm a non-drinker. I just enjoy drinking tea or water. I don't go out to the restaurants, and it's just it's some personal reasons, it's some religious reasons,
you just have to go about 100 miles outside of the city.
Yeah, the only time, but that's true. The only time I will ever drink, I might drink a couple of times a year. And it's if I'm at my deer lease and I'm totally safe, because I'm a cheap date. If I have one beer, I don't need to be driving. You know what I'm saying? Because I just don't, And so but by saying all of that, I still say it was liquor by the drink that made the change, because it started bringing in restaurants. When you start bringing in restaurants, other things start changing. So with this liquor bill that we just passed, still down south out by the lake, you still had to have a membership to drink. And so,
I did not even realize that until I read the bill.
That's why there's not that much. There's not any of that type development around there. And I thank goodness for the Walker family, and they've been out there with the Oasis for so long. And I think that is just one of the crowns. That's a jewel in our crown out here. I spend a lot of time out there. My wife and I go out to the lake 2 or 3 times a week, and not necessarily to the Oasis, but we have dinner there a lot. But just driving around out there, and but we need further development out there.
Yeah.
And so in order to get further development out there, the price we had to pay was liquor stores in Grand Prairie. And I'm going to tell you that, and that's because the city, we can't have anything to do with it. That was private groups and private organizations that had to do a petition, and petitions cost a lot of money. And so if that many citizens sign a petition for something to go on the ballot, then it goes on the ballot. And I'm going to tell you that at one of the elections, when they were signing up for the petition, I walked by and they go, "Would you like to sign up for the liquor petition?" I said, "No, I better keep my name off of that."
Right.
And I walked to my truck and I said, "No, I'm going to go put my name on that, because while I'm not in support of liquor stores in town, I am support of further development out south and getting more restaurants." And I'm all right with liquor stores in town because I believe in our police department. And when at city council, when we're planning these things out, and we've got Chief Dye in there, and we're saying we can do things. Now, folks, just be prepared that the liquor lobby in Austin, they are really, really strong. Probably the strongest lobby there is in Austin is the liquor lobby. And maybe rightfully so for those guys, because they don't want to be, we could say as a city, well, if you're going to be a liquor store, you got to do this, this, and this. And they just want to be treated like everybody else, and rightfully so. So there's certain things that we can and can't do by law, but I believe in our police force, and I believe in the rules that we have in place right now that we're going to attract. And are we going to end up with a liquor store in some shady place? Yeah, probably. I mean, it's just inevitable. But I believe in our abilities to enforce that, and unfortunately, it's the price we have to pay to have continued development down south.
I'm not sure people realize, and this is another thing too, is there's literally liquor stores that are already in Grand Prairie
on our border
that are just on the other side of Tarrant County.
Asian Times Square.
Times Square. Yeah. There's one right on the other side of Division if you drive by that way, like if you're going to the AT&T Stadium.
This side of 360 on 303, where everybody thinks 360 is a dividing line.
Yeah.
But particularly right there at 303, Arlington kind of swings over to the east a little bit, and that's why there's some liquor stores right there. So,
But you know what? If you've never been into a Specs,
right.
Specs are like the Whole Foods of liquor stores.
Absolutely.
And if you walk in, it is not like a bunch of seedy people. Right. These are professionals usually that are going in there. There's a large selection of wine. You're not going in there just to get, stuff like that. And so the liquor stores don't have to be a terrible thing.
Absolutely.
And why wouldn't we just want to benefit from the development that comes from it? And you're absolutely right. I mean, sometimes that's just the price that you pay for the development.
And I'll tell you, I think that ended up passing 70% to 30%. And I was so grateful that it was such a big margin. Had it not passed, and it would have not passed 70 to 30, I'd have been grateful for that as well. The last thing I wanted was a 55-45 vote on that deal. The citizens of Grand Prairie spoke up.
Right.
The vast majority of people said, yes, this is a good thing for our town. And it's not a city council deal. It was a petition put together by citizens, and the citizens voted for it. So.
Our episode today is spotlighting the Grand Prairie Historical Organization. This wonderful nonprofit organization works to promote and preserve the rich history of Grand Prairie, Texas by collecting, preserving, and interpreting the history through committed volunteers who translate to others while maintaining the highest standards of excellence. They share that history through regular meetings with informative speakers, involvement in the community, participating in events with the city, civic groups, the school district, and by collecting and displaying historical archives in the GPHO Museum, located at 1516 West Main Street in Grand Prairie. You can become a member with only a $25 yearly donation, and they would love to have your input and passion for this history of our city. If you are interested in learning more, please visit their website at gphistorical.com.
So if someone that was wanting to become a part of their community, like as far as being an elected official or something else, like what advice would you give them?
I think being a part of your community, that's such a great question. It takes on so many different things because it can start at your local PTA. Mayor Jensen, his very first public office was being president of the PTA. And he was the president of the elementary school that my wife's dad was the principal.
Wow.
So it gets started right there, but so many people say, I want to be a part of the community. Well, there's so many service organizations out here. Today we're with Lifeline Shelters for homeless children in Grand Prairie. There's Grand Prairie United Charities. There's Children's First. You've got Rotary clubs here that are business related. You have your local churches that are reaching out there. I know that the church that we attend at the end of the summer every year, we have hundreds of us that volunteer. We go out and help teachers set their rooms up again. And I had no idea how difficult that was until I went to do it.
Man, I'm telling you.
So if you're saying it and you're saying I can't get involved, then I'm gonna go ahead and say that's on you, because there's so many places that if you want to, and if you want to be on that bigger stage, and if you want to get involved in city politics or things of that nature, then you need to get to know your city council members, because we have amazing committees,
commissions. Yep.
Whether it's parks and recs or planning and zoning or aging or housing, airport, everything in the world, and that's all on the city website at gptx.org, to where you can look at all those different commissions. And quite honestly, Jenna, we've got several of them that are needing appointments.
I'm telling you right now, I'm on the Housing Community Improvement Commission, and it's like there's something that you can't even find anybody to do it. And these are literally commissions that you don't have to run for office.
Yep.
You get appointed by somebody that's on the council or the mayor, and then you just start. All you have to do is say, I want to do it, and that's all you have to do.
And then if you're doing it for the right reasons, if you're doing it because your heart is telling you to do that, then you're going to network and you're going to meet other people, and you're going to learn of other opportunities to get involved. And then I will also say, guard your heart. And it's so easy to say yes, 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 but don't be afraid to say no as your time starts running out, and to be able to say, I can't commit to that because I'm committed over here. Don't spread yourself out. Find something that you're passionate about. If you can find 2 or 3 things you're passionate about, then do that. But really, all of our politics start at home. I know that there's politics are such a big part of our national conversation right now. But honestly, the things that are going to affect your life the most are happening right here in Grand Prairie City Hall, or happening right here in these local charities. That's where you can really have an impact.
It's the pothole you drive over to get to your house every day.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a big user of Lloyd Park out at the lake, right? And we have campers, and we go out there all the time. And before I got elected, you would check in, and then you'd go unhook your camper, and then you'd go up to Kroger's and get your groceries and stuff. And when you come back out there might be 20 people in line. Well, you just paid to get in, and now you're sitting in line with 20 people, and your groceries are melting. So the first thing I did when elected is I went to Parks and Recreation and told them that problem and said, could we come up with a little fast pass or something? And that's why that's there now.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so now when you go in and you buy your little 2 or 3 day pass, we put your license plate number in the computer, and then you have that other gate that's totally separate from all the check-ins, and it reads your license plate and it opens up. It's little bitty things like that. It is. Could I have done that without being on city council? Probably so, but the reason I was able to get it done on city council is because I had a direct relationship with Parks and Recreation. I think that our city is set up so well that any citizen could have gone to Parks and Rec and say, hey, we have a real problem out here, and we would have recognized it and done it different. But it's all about getting involved, and the reason I'm on city council is because of these auctions, quite honestly. I mean, you get out there, and my goal was to serve my community. My goal was to answer God's calling with this gift that He bestowed upon me that I had no idea it was coming from, and to start helping charitable organizations, and always had a desire to be in a leadership position. But suddenly, when you're spiritually and emotionally mature, and you're in that position to do that, and an opportunity presents itself, then God had said, okay, Jeff, I gave you this, and I'm trusting you with it. Now I want you to go take care of these charities. And now I'm going to give you some name recognition, because I need you down here at City Hall right now.
Yeah, Grand Prairie does a very good job about networking the nonprofits together, especially, and like just really supporting one another. And as being on the Housing Commission myself, that's just one way that I can help them, and I can go to them and say, how can we help you? Do you need volunteers? Is there something we need? And you don't have to be an elected official to make a difference in this city, because not everybody has $35,000.
Right.
Not everybody even wants the responsibility. It's not for everyone. But if you want a little bit less of a, maybe not a public face type situation.
Right.
You don't want to get the calls all the time when something new happens that nobody likes, but you do want to help. There's a lot of ways you can do that. So like if people were to contact you and they wanted to, talk to you further, how would they do that?
Well, so on the Grand Prairie website, and thank you. The second thing I did upon being elected, I had seen this over in a couple other cities. And so now what we have on our GPTX website is contacting your city council member. And so now there's a real simple little form that you can go on and fill out, and it's mailed to the person, whether it's your district representative, whether it's the mayor and Greg and I as at-large positions, and it just says, here's my name, here's my address, or here's my phone number, here's my email, here's my situation, and that is delivered straight to our email, and it's probably the quickest, painless way to do it. And I'll tell you, man, when those things pop up in my mailbox, I jump right on them, and I know all of our council does. And generally we're passing those off to the right people in the city, because that's really what people are needing the most. They just need directions. Who do I go talk to to get this situation corrected? And very, very rarely do we ever see anything that somebody brings up that just doesn't make sense. You go, yeah, I didn't know that. And if you're driving down the road and you say, why would the city do that? That's just ignorant. Well, it's because we made a
No one
mistake.
has ever said that.
Yeah.
Come on, let's be honest.
No, it is ignorant. And call us, because, for instance, I live over off Form Drive, and it's heavy all of Great Southwest is under construction right now. And so we were shutting down access to my neighborhood, so we couldn't even leave. We had to circle around Mayfield. But we put up this big, giant flashing sign that said, Great Southwest, Form is closed at Great Southwest. So don't keep going that way, turn around.
Right.
Big, huge, giant flashing sign. And we put it right behind a big crepe myrtle bush. And I drove by there, and I'm looking around, and I go, okay, well, if I'm the guy with the sign, it was a big, giant open area right there. It wasn't just a total no-brainer decision. It was an open area. He just didn't turn around and drive back and realize, oh, well, that tree's actually blocking it. So, I knew the right person to call. And so if you're on that street and you see a sign behind a tree and you can't figure it out, it's not because we're ignorant. It's because we made a mistake. Give us a call and we'll fix it.
Well, and this is why it's very important that, going back to this podcast, if you never drive down Great Southwest, you don't know.
Right.
And even if you're a city councilman, and if you never drive down Great Southwest, you don't know. So that's why it's important for us all to communicate with one another so that we know better. But so that's great. So you can go on the city website and talk to you, and I can guarantee that if you ever wanted to talk to him, he is very open, he's willing, and he would love to get to know you. And
I'm easy to find on Facebook. My cell
very
number's
true.
on Facebook. I welcome those type of calls, and I wouldn't be serving. I truly try to have a servant's heart. I'm not on city council for any self-glorification for me. It's my way to give back, and it's my way to serve. And so please reach out and give me a call if I can be of any help at all.
You just like what you said, you just want to be the voice.
Yeah.
I mean, you have your opinions, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's most important when it comes to having those discussions. So, and you understand that.
Yep.
You're mature enough to understand that.
Enough to understand that.
And you guys really, that's one of the great reasons about having people in positions like that have grown up here, because your heart is Grand Prairie.
It really is.
You really do have that heart, and it's just lovely. You remember how things have progressed, and you want to keep it that way. And so, well, Jeff, thank you so much for spending your time with me.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and you're doing a wonderful job with these podcasts.
Thank you.
I just wish you nothing but continued success.
I have a feeling this won't be the last time.
Cool.